be it. It's all about society. So basically, let's recap. You're annoyed that he gets you to copy down from the board and he just gets you to copy all day, like from textbooks and boards, right? And then you have it, and then you're annoyed that you have to do essay tests every month and a half. Yeah, is that's what I took from that. Is that correct? We're going to have religion too, but I think we may have another teacher when we get there. Okay, because I can't learn that quick. Do you want me to tell you something really, really? What's the word? This might be a hard pill to swallow. I understand that as well. Why? If you can't rely on your teachers, well, that's essentially you can't rely on your teachers. I feel torn on this, because on the one hand I understand from the student's perspective, and I also understand from the teachers. Basically, what the teachers predominantly should be doing is giving you the tools in which to teach yourself the subject, right? I'm aware that you probably do a lot at home as well, right? So you might not have the free time to. There could be many reasons, and I understand with ADHD, I have it too. Right? And like you're not going to learn if you don't find it interesting. Copying, because what will happen is it'll go through one ear or the other. You won't focus. You won't like memorize it. And to be quite honest, with my mind and like with ADHD, I'm really good at abstract thinking, but I really crap at remembering details like names, titles. Like I'm really good at remembering history, but sometimes I forget names, like kings' names that's something. One thing I do think that's really good is to link information like through a story. So the way I try to remember history is I like to remember the whole chronology of English and kings and queens, and like I think of like, okay, I connect each king together, and what happened after this one died, it was then this. So like I remember the Tudors, we had King Henry VIII who died, and then that passed on to his son, which was King Edward VI. King Edward VI passed it on to Lady Jane Grey? She was queen for 9 days, and then when she died, she was beheaded by Mary. I don't remember which number she had. Might have been Mary the First. Then her sister took over, Elizabeth I. Elizabeth died with no heir, so the Stuarts. Then the Stuart period. Who came after the Charles II at the end of the Stuarts? Okay, my memory might have gotten a bit off there. So I remember it was James V, Charles I, Charles II. Do you see what I mean though? Because I find it much easier to remember certain time periods in England by starting from a piece of memory that I already know quite well. I mean, does that make sense? And we're taught the Tudors to death in like history, in history class. And my memory might still be a bit spotty. Who came after Charles II? I think it was a queen. I know eventually it led to the uncle. Eventually it led to Victoria, but we also had the Georgian period. There was one or two kings between the George I. It might have been William III. Oh, you've gotten me ranting now about history. Who was king after Charles II? Apparently it was James II and... Was it James II? Apparently it was Charles II from 85 to 88. Jesus, he was only for 3 years. Who was after him? Who was king after James II? Do you want to give me an example more prevalent to you? Apparently it was Wait, James had abdicated and the next day offered the crown to William and Mary. Yeah, so then it was William. I don't know which William it was, though. I'm not a genius, no. No, I'm not a genius. I generally struggled with education for a lot of my life, Wide. So, but I love to learn. That's where I got. See what I mean? Like, believe it or not, if you change your mind or if you're learning something like Wide, I bet you know a lot about things you love. I bet you're really interested in stuff you like, right? Like game lore, you could learn it. You could probably learn it in a few days because you find it so interesting. Like Wikipedia, no? It's like that with history. So the core difference is schools should first try and get you really engaged and interested in a subject, and then give you all the tools to learn it yourself. I'm only saying this because that's how I think ADHD predominantly should. That's how ADHD works, or at least I think it's the best way of learning shit. Yeah, well, I have a hard time remembering. A lot of people do. How do you remember anything? Well, I mean, let me give you an idea. If you're crap at remembering things, the opposite must be, or the opposite strength, because I think there's always two sides. I'm very sharp at learning, right? But I'm very shit at remembering. There's evidence for pictures, because pictures, basically, the more sights, the more inputs, a sensory object like your eyes, your ears, your mouth, the more sensory you use, the more you're using your brain, because your brain's constantly using all 5 or multiple senses, and the more senses you use, the better it is to learn. It's called dual coding, I believe. My PS5 I linked. Okay. But yeah, let me kill this quick. I get to play Sephiroth. What was I saying? Pictures help, yeah. So I bet you're Wide. You're really quick and good at solving puzzles, but I bet you're not great at memorizing stuff. I bet you're really good at maths, right? How compared to maths and English? No? Puzzles are fun and all that. Maths are what? Maths is essentially a puzzle with rules, and maths is a game. It's like rules. You've got to learn the rules, and you can play the game properly. No? I guess they could argue that for a lot of subjects, but still. Well, it's because you're a better logical thinker than you're better at association probably rather than well, basically, it's where, do you know, like when people say, like, I don't want to bring racism into it, but like racism or like, no, there's a better word actually. There's a better word. Basically, you would rely on you're better at associative memory and that's why, like, I relate that to racism, because you rely a lot on your history of a certain situation, and you associate different things with different things, making you far more perceptive and able to link concepts better. But you might struggle with the opposite, which is using pre-existing knowledge logically by computing it and acting upon it, and rather you act on instinct. That's what I meant. Prejudice can come from associative memory, because people can sometimes be, you know, prejudiced instinctively, but that's not obviously an inherent thing. So what I meant was, you have two types of memory: associative and accumulative. No worries, it's a bit, I'm saying this really quickly, I'm not doing a great job. Right, two types: associative and cumulative. Cumulative is knowledge that builds up. Associative is your reaction, right? Instinct, short-term memory, instinct, right? You probably might have better. You might have better associative memory, which is solving puzzles, learning, and adapting ability, right? Some people might have better accumulative memory, so they're better at storing what they learn. There's people that have memories that can just remember everything, but they're still stupid in some regards, right? You understand what I'm saying by that, right? Now, how does someone who's really strong with associative memory get better at adapting their other ability? And you know what I think it is why? It might not even be inheritary, it might literally be experience. You might have more experience learning than remembering. Does that make sense? When do you ever have to force yourself to learn that memory? If you don't use it, you will forget it. There's actually something called the forgetting curve, right? You will forget it. So there's exercises where ADHD people are very sharp and very quick in adapting to the situation, so they are very good at practicing associative memory techniques. I think there is some theory behind this is all coming from my memory, and I'm not certain how much truth there is to it, but it makes sense, right? It makes some I can't back it up with evidence, but to me this is what I think. So you should practice trying to forget and learn things, and do that over and over and over, and it will help you remember things better. So how do you do that? That's a good question, right? Oh, you forget yet? So I learned this from, I was listening to there's a man called Dr. K, right? I listened to him once. I don't know if it was him, but it might have been. He said the best 2 times of the day to study was straight away in the morning, the first 4 hours of the day, and then at the last 4 hours of the day. And you learn the same thing, because you learn it in the morning, forget it for the rest of the day, and then you do it again at night. And as you fall asleep, your memory will process that information and remember it better. 20 minutes of what you learned in the morning, 20 minutes of it at night again. So doing it over and over again, the issue that does work, but what you're going to get is, especially with the ADHD brain, you're going to get bored doing. You've got to do it differently. You've got to adapt it, reconfigure it, make it more interesting, different ways. Basically use that information, tell it to someone, because there is something called, I think there was I read once, I can't remember what it was, it's something like it was like a taxonomy. Anyway, I'll explain what it is, but I can't remember what it's called. Essentially, there's 6 to 7 levels of learning, right? And at the bottom is remembering, right? Remembering. Understanding, because you can remember something without understanding it. So, I remember that Japanese kanji. Fuck, what does it mean? Or, I remember that Japanese kanji. It means tabimasu. I can eat. Can you please now write it? Fuck, I can't remember it. Sometimes you can understand something and not remember. I feel like those two are a bit. It depends, right? Anyway, the third one is applying. So maybe actually the third level is applying. So then using it yourself, the writing, like the kanji. I'm using kanji because I use it sometimes. So then, okay, I'll practice writing and using it in a sentence. Maybe I'm talking to someone or making sentences of my own. And then, yeah. The next few tend to be for they tend to be more, what was the next 4? Or 3? Fuck. Analyzing, comparing. That's 4 and 5. 6. 6 might have been creating, like, brand new shit, like new kanji. That's if we think of it like that, think of it as like doctorate level. I really enjoyed that lecture. This is I gotta be careful because sometimes I lecture way too much. They call it teacher talk, don't they? But this is, I think, firstly, it's good because you're interested. Otherwise, it wouldn't be effective if people weren't interested. But this is what happens in lectures at university. When you get to university, there will be no practical work. You'll just be